So if any of the acute care facilities are on the call, you're welcome to stay on the call, but we are right now focusing on the Florida Trauma Centers. There may be some questions about the data standard. So currently we are, the department will accept any validated TQIP file, and that should pretty much explain how we'll, when Josh shows all of the different components. We're focused on a validated TQIP file. That's our standard that we're using. I know there is the 2017 standards that are on our website, but we're trying to focus on, like I mentioned, on the validated TQIP file. I'm going to let Josh take over. I want him to be able to present everything on the call that he can. I'm going to be on until 2:30, and but if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and we can either answer them at the end, or well, I can respond via email. And I'll kick it back over to you, Josh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene. And while you were talking, I turned on a recording, so I hope that doesn't discourage anyone from participating or asking questions in the chat, but we will make this video available to you all later for review and for sharing with others. My name is Josh Walters. I am of Biospatial, which is recently acquired by ImageTrend. At Biospatial, I was Chief Operating Officer. My new title is now VP of Government Solutions. Just a second, I'm going to mute everybody there. Apologies. So I'm now VP of Government Solutions, and I'm well versed with the Biospatial Patient Registry, and so I'll be giving the demonstration of the application today. Let me start by sharing my screen. So soon after this call, at the direction of the trauma section, we will give accounts for all of the trauma hospital representatives. And you'll be able to take that account and log into our development site. This is not yet the production site, but it is our development site. And we are able to store real data on this site. It is a HIPAA compliant, secure site. But the data on the registry side of things that you'll see here, some of it actually is real data. And the stuff that you enter here can be fake. You don't necessarily have to enter real data in here. I'm going to do my be very careful to not show real patient data here during this demonstration, but also when you are given access, you'll be given access under your hospital organization with user access rights to your data and to EMS records that are associated with your hospital. So just keep that in mind, that you may encounter real data treated as such. And this is a development site. So once we go through the process of getting you educated on the development site, and the state trauma section is ready to go with the live production site, you will then be given new credentials for the production site. Today, we're going to focus on the development site. So when you come in, you'll be given, you'll have your email address. It's the one that would be given to us, and you'll have a password. Oh my goodness, what? Oh, oops, let me pick the right account. Start over there. You'll be given a username and password. Now this is interesting. Let me just, somewhat embarrassing that I had this all set up, and there we go. And password manager got out of whack there. So again, you'll be given a temporary password for your email account, and when you log in for the first time, the system is going to ask you to first reset that temporary password to a new password that meets the minimum criteria, and then also fill out a registration profile. That profile looks something like this, where it has your name and contact info. That's just so that our support staff can reach out to you if need be, and when we contact you, we're able to address you appropriately. But when you log in after that, when you get through that profile creation, you should be brought to this landing page that will show you various cards and options for using the trauma registry. And we'll go through each of these today. The number of options that you have on these dashboards may be constrained based on the role assigned to you. But if you are a hospital administrator, you should have access to all of these dashboards or cards that you're seeing just now. But again, if, for example, you gave access to someone within your organization that maybe should only be able to analyze the data and not create data, then they're not going to see, for example, the registry records view, the registry import view, and others. They may only be able to see the registry analytics view. So there is some configuration control. We'll cover that in a moment. So this landing page has these cards that if you click on them will take you to various dashboards or pages for the patient registry. At the top here, you can also see that there is a drop-down menu of the same cards that will navigate you to these dashboards. My account is a testing account. I'm a member of multiple organizations, so I do have the option of switching between organizations. In most cases, I believe you all will have one organization that represents your hospital, but if you are part of more than one hospital organization, you may have the option to switch between them, because in each of those hospital organizations, you may have a different role and a different set of access rights. Furthermore, on this page, you'll see some things like links to your user profile to change that, user settings that you can change certain preferences about the application. There are training videos, technical support and documentation, and then our help desk. If you run into issues, you can fill out this form and send that to us. We also have various help desk related email accounts. Currently, helpdesk@biospatial.io is one of them. Another important one is registry@biospatial.io. You don't necessarily need to remember those things. You can just hit the help desk for us. Let me also say, if you log out and you're having trouble logging in, there's a reset password button. After you've logged in for the first time, you should be able to reset your own passwords. But also there's this need help link here. There's instructions on how to log in for the first time. There's a PDF help document that you can click on to bring up, and that will help you walk through the steps of logging in for the first time. And then there's also that same help desk request form there. So I'm going to log myself back in. And now let's go into the registry pages here. As an administrator, you may see some things that you want to do for your registry organization. You'll be able to add new users and assign them rights. In my case, you can see that my test account has access rights to Holmes Regional Medical Center. My apologies to any representative of that organization. I used to live in Brevard County, and so I chose this location as my test site. So in this case, you can see that I have a hospital administrator role, but there are other roles that could have been assigned to me. If I am an administrator, I can actually add new test accounts to this development site. And so I may want to add folks with different roles. As I hover over these roles, you'll see the abilities assigned to each of those roles, or rather the rights assigned to each of these roles. Let me just close out of that. So there's not much here to do on the registry administrator page other than administer user accounts. Let's go to first to the registry import page. And the reason I say let's go there first is because I assume that many of you already have trauma registry software where you're collecting your registry records, reporting to ACS, and doing other analytics. To be compliant with the state, you would need to upload your data, and this is the dashboard in which you would do so. The upload interface is meant to be simple. As you can see earlier today, I tested this out by uploading a sample NTDS file. It was just a local XML file that I had on my machine. I drug it up here to this drag and drop box, and then it proceeded from there. You can also click on this button. It will bring up a window where you can find the files that you're looking for. For example, I have another test file. If I click on that, you'll see that it previews what I've tried to upload here. There's some other details that I can expand. In this very small test file, I have 2 records representing 2 patients for 1 facility, and that would be my Holmes regional facility here. So if I click submit on that, we'll see the spinner bar starts to spin here. The entry should show up here. And now we have this entry as a 0% progress, but we know that it's going to begin working on that. If I were to try to upload a file that was not related to one of my facilities, like this one, which happens to be a facility. I've done another training session for the state of North Dakota. They're not going to be associated with Homes. My account right now is a Homes regional account. And so if I try to upload these files, I will submit, they'll show up here, but we should see some errors once this begins to process. Now, if I get anxious and want to see if there's things updating, I can click on that little spinner bar button up here at the top, and it will refresh and show me the status. Those first two uploads that I just tried today, those were related to Homes Regional. All of our basic checks on those files passed, and we can see that there were no issues there. But with this file, we did have a problem here. This file had two records reported in it, and for both of those records, the facility ID was wrong. That's because it was a North Dakota facility and not the ID associated with my hospital, Homes Regional. So keep that in mind. If you export data from your system and somehow the IDs are out of whack, or perhaps the format is not understood, the system is going to flag the records that don't meet those criteria. You can expand upon that. It should help give you a little bit of information to troubleshoot that. But again, if you do have challenges with this and you just don't know what to do, reach out to our help desk and we'll try to troubleshoot that with you. Now that I have uploaded one file successfully, and actually today I uploaded another one, we can leave this ingest page, which is just set up to drag and drop and bring files in for processing. The next step is to go over to Registry Ingest. And this is a page where we can analyze those files that have been uploaded for any kind of validation issues. And so we've got lots of Homes Regional Medical Center files here. We have been working with the trauma section at the state to upload historical data. So we uploaded some test data, well, actually not truly test data, but some earlier data that is real data into the system. And so we have some of those reports here. But of the files that I've uploaded today, we can see that some of those files here exist. And we've got two files that have been uploaded so far and been processed. This is a file that earlier today I created through direct entry. I'll show you that form in just a moment. But when we look at these individual files here, typically once we get our production system set up and the data dictionary is finalized, we'll be doing validation on these files as we bring them into the system. We will be, for example, validating against the National Trauma Data Bank's validation rules. For example, the vital sign is within the appropriate range, or if you fill out this one field, you cannot fill out that other field. Things like that that are built into the standard will be validated, and you'll see those rules here if there are any problems, as well as the level of error or warning associated with that particular validation rule. At this moment, we did not bother to validate some of the older records in the system. My apologies for not being able to monitor the chat at the same time that I was speaking, but you will get access to the site in the coming days. And I'm looking through here. This is the new state trauma registry, and you will be adding new records to the registry. Historical records will be working with the state to bring all of those historical records into our production site. And then as we go forward, you'll be able to upload your other records that you might be generating from your third-party system, or you can use this system to directly enter your data. What happens if my export file has error level errors that prevent to pass data submission? How can we see what incident cases are preventing to pass and what are the errors? So it will either be on the ingest side of things. When we go to the import page here, any errors that may be coming up will tell you which record index and what the associated error would be. These are kind of very fundamental, either identification or format structural issues. If you fix those things and re-upload that, it will not create duplicates in the system. It will recognize the file that you're submitting again. The records within that file have been submitted before and correct those issues. So it should pass those at that point if you truly corrected them. And then when we go to the ingest dashboard, the validation rules that I mentioned, those will also be shown here with references to individual records. If you saw an error there that you wanted to correct, you would then do so in the system that you created that record in, and then re-export, resubmit it, and it should flow through, again, not duplicating the record, but updating the record that was originally submitted. So you would just essentially expand upon these records and review any of the validation results there to see if there are any problems. We do have some search parameters on the left side of our dashboards, and on this dashboard, it would be useful to look at things like application errors if you in fact had those. This should be set up to show you on a default level which errors you have. We could set this to validation summary, for example. In this case, we have no validation on these records that we've been testing with, but if we were running validation, you would see things like errors, warnings, etc. On the left-hand side, as I mentioned, these are your search parameters. They're flexible if you had other parameters to isolate the data to, if you wanted to look at submission latency and so forth. This is a fairly basic dashboard. Really, I think you're more concerned about looking at validation errors or warnings, and so you can filter down to just those parameters. You could filter based on time. And then once you've got that set up, you could create your versions of charts to show something like, I don't know, event local date by the validation summary, or the validation rule set. There's warnings. So you could really drill down into the issues that you're seeing in the aggregate, but then find those records that have those problems and use the record identifiers to go back into your source system to correct those issues. Now, in all of our dashboards, when you set these searches up, you can set them up in such a way that you configure the search panel, you configure the charts and the tables in the way that you like them, and then you can save those searches. Typing in a name and a description, you can make those searches private or shared within your hospital organization so that others can use them. You can also subscribe to them, although in this particular case, I don't know how valuable that would be. If you're regularly uploading files, then you might want to have a data report for that. Maybe your team is responsible for uploading or creating records, and you as a supervisor just wanted to see the data flow of that. You could subscribe to the searches that you created such that a PDF would show up in your inbox at the specified frequency. So if I save this as a new search, I will have now in my folder icon here in the upper left, that search that I've just created so that I can load that search up at my leisure. I can also make it my default search so that when I come into this dashboard, that's the parameters, the configuration that I will see upon entering the dashboard. So now that I've shown you the registry ingest page, that somewhat completes the flow of data import. Let's go to the registry analytics view to see what that might look like. So again, for my hospital here, I've got some historical data loaded. I created a saved search already to look at the range where I had some historical data. And that's pretty much it here as far as explaining the search. So there are lots of parameters. These parameters are coming from the data elements in the data dictionary. It's not comprehensive. We don't have everything, but we will be adding out more over time and based on your feedback. So please do give us that feedback as we go. So we have lots of parameters, patient-related, injury-related, and so forth, and then charts to visualize that information, mapping, and then a records table to look at individual records that match our search criteria, or in other words, patient population that we've specified. All of these charts are configurable. We have some cards at the top to summarize the results of our search. In this case, the very first chart is a Data Explorer chart. When you see those combinations of words, Data Explorer, then you know that you have a very flexible chart in front of you. We can change the chart type. We can change the measures that are being displayed. The X and Y axes, if you will, depending on the chart type, are defined by the dimension or the group by. There are lots of options for you in both of those. And then if you're looking at a temporal time chart by using, say, the event time or the visit date, you can have differential views to compare, say, this year's to last year's. So you can also make some very nice temporal trends chart if you have year over year data. If you wanted to see, for example, 2014, 2015, 2016, et cetera, all lined up as a time series on top of each other to see how things are fluctuating year to year, that is something that you could do through this chart. By default, we've got this chart initially set up to show us trauma records by injury mechanism, which is the y-axis here, grouping by ISS in these ranges of 1 to 8, 9 to 15, 16 to 24, and then greater than 24. And so you can see for falls, we have a certain proportion of that where 24 of the patients during this time range had an ISS that was greater than 24. As you hover over these lines, you'll see that the tooltips update. We can also toggle off certain aspects of our charts. Up at the top right here, we can toggle the labels. And then under our configuration, we can even view this as a percentage. So lots of flexibility in this. I encourage you to explore it. There is yet another Data Explorer chart. Very same functionality. It's just set up differently by default. In this case, we've got ISS group by ED disposition, and it is shown as a percentage. So the higher the ISS, the greater the disposition of folks being discharged in different ways. For example, our died expired percentage is increasing as we move up in ISS. We have an age and gender distribution chart, as well as a race ethnicity chart. We have an analytics map. In the upper right, you'll see there's configuration for this as well. By default, it's showing incident location. We can drill down a little bit here and break things down by county. This is over in Brevard County, so you see most of our patients are originating from that location. We can change this chart to look at a facility location. Given that my account is currently using just one location, one facility, there's only going to be one place there, hence keeping it by incident location as default. If I click on the folding map icon, that will bring up some options for us. We can change things to look at this default of measure, or we can break it down by zip code. We also have different options for the measure being displayed. By default, we're going to be seeing count, but if you wanted to look at these other options, you could do so. We have additional map layers, for example, showing the facilities layer is one way to bring up information about the facilities. And if you click on many of these dots, will show pop-ups of information for the layers. I encourage you to look through those layers to see if there's anything of interest or value to you, but we've got things like weather and other options to overlay. Sorry, let me make sure I'm letting everybody in, and I'll come back here to the questions. Let's see. Okay, I think I've caught up here. What happens if my export file has an error level in the past data submission? How can we see what incident cases prevented to pass and what are the errors? I checked that one. How can we download the record errors? So when you go to records tables, there will be a CSV download button here. If you click on that, you can export data in the table. So if you were on, for example, the registry ingest dashboard and you had filtered it down to just those records that had a warning or an error, you could then export the table and have all of that in a CSV file for easy reference in your other system. What is the process for having a record removed that has been submitted but then determined to not meet NTDB inclusion criteria? Well, I think you would have to open a ticket with the state to have that record to be deleted. We don't have a programmatic way of doing that, but that said, we are computing against the records that meet or do not meet the NTDB inclusion criteria, and that is actually a filter that you can use not only when you're evaluating data. For example, here is that filter here. So even if it doesn't meet the criteria, you can still submit it. It is still available for analysis, but you can filter it out if you choose. Furthermore, we haven't gotten there yet, but there is a registry export page. And when you're exporting data from this system, you can use that same filter to say, I only want to export records that do or do not meet the NTDB inclusion criteria. For clarification, we are to use our HTML or zip folder from what we submit to TQIP as the file and we send to the state. Correct. We're anticipating if you're uploading data, it will be NTDB or TQIP compliant XML data, and you can do that all in one big file. I think the system also supports zipped XML files, but the system does not support HTML. Now, maybe we're talking about the same thing because HTML does look a lot like XML when you look at it in a raw editor, but we in fact do not support HTML. That is not an NTDB standard, but we can, if you want to follow up with us on that, or you have trouble with the formats that you can't export, just reach out to our help desk. If you do receive patients from outside of the state, for example, Georgia, that is completely fine. The original location of the incident or their patient home state should be irrelevant if it's more about what are your criteria for collecting those patients. If the state says you must collect or create a record for any patient that enters your doors, again, it doesn't matter where they originated from. If they come to you and they meet your criteria for creating that record, go ahead and create it. You can still submit that to the state and use filters to filter those patients out. Now, if I come back over here to the map, and I'm going to turn this very busy, well, it's fine, it's aggregating. So you can see, according to the map right now, this location, this facility has received patients from quite a range, not just Florida, but far away, even into Arizona. So maybe they were flown in to be treated as an IFT, for example. But again, the registry can accept patients from all origins and process them accordingly, and you can use the search parameters to filter out to just what you're interested in. There is a records table. I mentioned earlier that there is a CSV download button so that you can explore all of these records. There are column options here that if you wanted to add more columns for exploration to the table and to prepare for an export, you could do so. When you click this CSV download button, you can also have the option of selecting all of the columns there that are available in the table, plus some more. And when you export them out, keep in mind you might want to specify a higher row count. It's just a way of filtering down the amount of rows, but by default, it will do 500 at a time. There's some other parameters, but once you confirm that, that file will download locally to your machine. In record tables, you'll also see these little plus signs in the interest of just protecting the privacy of this data, even though some of it may be fake, some of it is not, so I'm not going to open this up. But if you click that button, you'll open up a view that will show you the details of those records even further. So keep that in mind. That plus sign will give you that ability if you have that right and roll. That is the high-level overview of our registry analytics page. I'm going to hop over to the export page, and then we're going to get into registry creation, record creation after that. This export page is where you might bring data out of this system. So to create a new export, there's a blue button over here, new export. Clicking on that will bring up a form. I would give it a name and then choose a format. Right now, we'll just go with the default of NTDS XML. And then you can set certain filters. So we can start with a local patient visit time. And let's say that we're using this system for our data entry and we wanted to export data for an annual report to the ACS National Trauma Data Bank. I might set my window of time to be last year, like so. And now we have optional filters. And so I might start with filtering records by NTDB inclusion criteria, hit the plus sign as I go. And now I have this filter labeled F1. If I click on that, F1 means that the NTDB inclusion criteria must be met. I can then go back and add more. For example, we could say, let's filter records by incident state. Someone earlier asked, what about out-of-state patients? Maybe we only wanted to send in patients from the state of Florida. Or conversely, we could say something like, I want to send everything but not Florida, or not Georgia, rather. So Georgia is selected here, and I click this not button, and now you can see my Boolean expression here is F1 and not F2. And we can go on and on to continue to add more criteria to make all kinds of complex specifications here. So we could say we only want to send high ISS patients that did not have an incident within Georgia to the NTDB that meets their criteria. So you can build up your own structure like that. Once you're ready to go, you hit review. It will show you that criteria once more, and then you can download that locally. Let's now go to the fun stuff, our registry records page. So on this registry records page, this may be where, if you're using our system for data entry, where it's going to be where you spend the most time. It's a patient-centric view. You'll be able to add your patients in manually. In the future, we'll have ways to import your patients in bulk. But in the meanwhile, if you want to bring in all of your patient panels or profiles, do reach out to us and we'll see what we can do to help you get all of those patients loaded up. But as you create patients or as they're loaded in, they should show up in your patient panel here. By default, it's got it set to a year to date. So these are the patients that we've received year to date in our open records. Granted, this is a test environment, and I've only created a few test records here to get started with. So we don't have a ton here, but over time, this will build up. And so you can see that in of our cards, for the time range that we've got selected, we have 2 patients, but 4 records. One of those records is open, none of them are unlocked, and none of them are overdue. The overdue setting is something that the registry can set up to say, like, well, you must submit this record to us 90 days after patient visit, something like that. And so that's what would flag it being overdue or not. As we see the patient information here, we can review the patients there. We can export the data for those patients. We can configure the columns for these individual tables. You can see that I have one open record, Franz Wagner. Maybe you know who that is, local Florida celebrity, I should say. And then there's me. So no comparison there. But then we have completed records. I completed a record earlier today that I had created for myself. We could view that record if you'd like, and that's going to bring up a view template here of the various tabs. These are 2025 NTDS and TQIP elements, and we can see that we have a demographics tab, an injury tab, pre-hospital, ED, procedures, pre-existing conditions, and so on. We'll go on through these as we create a new record here in a moment, but I just wanted to show you that there are tabs here. There's patient information, and then we've also linked an EMS record here to our registry record. So the status of this record is actually complete at this point. We did not have anything but a top level comment. Again, I'll show you what that looks like, but let's go ahead and close this record and come back. There are 3 ways that we can create a new registry record. The first is from scratch. And if we click this Create Record button, it will bring up a panel here that says, all right, I'm associated with this facility. What's my visit date? We could say Happy Valentine's Day, and then create and open that record. And now our from scratch record here is all red because we have a lot of empty data that we need to complete. We have no linked EMS records, and we haven't assigned a patient yet. So we could click that Assign Patient button, and we could search for something. Let's go. And I had a name. Franz Wagner has a brother. Let's see if I can find that brother in here because I was messing around earlier. No, we just have Franz, and I didn't create Mo, but I could add in Mo here and search again. It says no patients found. So let's create that patient. We'll give him an ID, and I'm just going to make up some stuff. And yes.
Hey, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt for just a quick question. Is this, so just to clarify, we would not need to utilize this aspect of it unless we are utilizing biospatial as our actual registry. So everything you showed prior to this is what we need to do to upload it for the state. Is that correct?
Correct. And thank you for clarifying that. Yes, this is just if you're interested in creating your own registry records using the state provided system. I'm going to guess something somewhat random here for the birth date. And now we have these things filled out. I'm going to hit create. And now we have Mo Wagner and assign. And so now our patient is assigned here, and we could go proceed from there to create the record data entry fields. I'm going to go ahead and save and close this for now because I wanted to show you the 3 ways that you can create a record. The first of which was creating from scratch. The next is creating from an existing patient record. So for example, if I wanted to make a new record for myself, I click Add Record, and maybe I got hurt yesterday, create and open, and now my patient is already assigned here. You can see that's my patient profile there, but then I have all the data fields to complete my record from there. I'm going to save and close out of here for now and show that there is actually a way to, let me go back into that record and view. You can actually delete that record by opening up the actions here and deleting it. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one since we just started from scratch and I don't need to create that one. So that was the second way, from a patient. The third way is to search from EMS records. And we are connected with the state EMS data repository. And so you could look for records that are associated with your facility, EMS patients that are transported to or from one or more of your facilities. And there are search criteria that you can use to find those patients. So for example, if I knew that I had a patient that was between 20 and 30 years old, of male and white, apply that, load the EMS records. We're down to 17 records out of our sample set here, and we can see some information about them. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and expand on all of these because we might encounter some real data here, but you can see, for example, that patient information is there, and you can continue to expand upon information. Either in the first plus sign will show you the raw view of the data. The second plus sign will show you a pretty formatted view of that, which if I click that, it will immediately expose all of that sensitive information. So I'm not going to do that, but you can see that all of the information that's documented by the EMS medics in their records would be available for you to review so that you could confirm, yes, in fact, this is the patient that I'm looking for by their name, their condition, the transporting agency, and so forth. So all of that's there for you. If you do select one of those records and say, that's the one that I want to start from, it will show up here. We hit create record there, give it a visit date. And then in this case, this one looks like it was transported on the 5th of February, not February, 5th of January. Create and open. And now it brings me in, and you can see that I've already got my linked EMS record here. And a nice feature of this, whenever you link an EMS record, either from the start or after the fact, you have the option of importing that data. So I click on that button, we'll then be able to see all of the information that was documented within that EMS record that's associated with the trauma registry data dictionary field. We'll see what they put in that element, which NMSIS data element it came from, and if we had any existing values in our registry record, it would show up here in the 4th column. And then we can import all of them at one go, or we could maybe say, oh, I don't want to import some of these other things. I'm just going to leave those alone. And then when we do so, that information will then show up in our registry record file. Oh, well, this is a new interaction here. Let's go back to that. View that record here. Well, I'll have to ask our dev team what happened on our development site because that was not successful. Let's give it one more go. Yep. This is what happens when I try to demonstrate from a development site, but we'll follow up that and make sure that works for you. I've done that 50 times, worked every time until now. Apologies for the embarrassing behavior there. So to recap, 3 ways to start a new record: from scratch, from a patient, and from an EMS record. If we already have a record in progress, I'll start from this Franz Wagner record here. Then we'll see we've got some information already populated. I don't have any EMS records linked. I click this button and I can use my same parameters here, which all match up to my particular patient, load those EMS records there. And I know that my individual is 23 years old. So I'm going to select that record, link it, come over here to the top right and click back to record. Come over here, import data, select this information. I'm going to deselect date of birth. And now clicking that, everything is working as planned. That's how it's supposed to work when we do that. I can fill out other things, and as I'm filling these things out, they'll check away. Patient home country, it's Germany. Alternate home residence is not applicable. Now that we've got everything on this tab filled out, we can see our top level tab has gone to green. Now, one quick thing that we might want to demonstrate here is that you can add commentary on any of these. And for example, I could click on this question bubble mark here at the top right corner of any of these cards, and that's going to open up a panel that allows me to specify some things. For example, no zip code for Germany, if we wanted to add that. But we could also make that an issue And if it is an issue, then we can assign that out to somebody. Now, right now, I don't have a lot of people within my organization, just my test account. So I could assign it to myself if I choose. As you have others within your organization, you can assign that out to them as well. You can see we have a toggle option here for emailing your assigned user. If I click on that, it's going to fire that off to my new test account here. And then we can see that the issue exists and the issue is now open. So this is a simple way of creating issues and logging things that you might encounter for correction. Now, because I made that an issue, this is now a red comment and my tab has become red as well. If at some point in the future, I change this to say no longer an issue, but we've resolved it, if I update that, this is going to go to resolved. Closing this out, we can see we still have a history here, but it's no longer red and it's no longer making our demographic red as well. We can do that at the top level if you'd like. You don't have to do it on an individual element. And we can also look at the log up here next to the patient name of all of the updates that have been made over time to this particular record. And that would be beyond just my test account, but if anybody else came in to review this record, that would get logged and show up in that profile as well. What else? There are lots of different tabs with different functionality. I'll point out that the diagnosis tab here has ICD-10 codes. We're looking up against a cache of data, and it is the latest ICD-10 codes there. So you can search for all of those by typing in information. The AIS code is now, we're probably the first, if not the only ones that are using the AAAM's web API to pull these AIS codes. I know that there are other vendors out there working on it. As far as I know, we're the only ones that have done it so far. We've actually been helping them improve the functionality of that. But you can type in codes or character descriptions, and it will search up against that API. It's spinning up here at the top. And so after typing those FEMR code or that FEMR description here, we can go and find the code that we'd like to add. And so that is one thing. Again, we're hitting real-time APIs to pull these codes back. We keep them up to date. And we've got some improvements coming out in the next week to make this even easier to use. In a future update, we're planning to add functionality such that we can couple these things together. If you're searching on ICD-10 codes, that can suggest AIS codes that are relevant and vice versa. Hospital events, you can go through and filter these out. You can also use these little quick drop downs here at the top here. If you wanted to just make them all at once, no, for example, you can have an option here of setting it to empty fields only or all the fields. So if, for example, I said yes on this one alcohol withdrawal symptom, and then I said, let's do it to all empty fields, everything else is going to be no. If I wanted to overwrite that yes and said all fields, now that's gone to no. And so you can use these parameters to quickly fill out fields if you'd like to. So one quick, easy way would be like, all right, I'm going to set everything to no, and I know that this person has an AKI, so I'll set that to yes, and now I'm done. Furthermore, once we've identified that there is a hospital event, we might want to add a comment to that and say needs investigation. So now I've got a new issue on that one. It's red, and my tab stays red. We pause now to look at the chat here. We will have to manually add each patient and not import the record if we created a file for export with TQuip. So if you are creating files in your third-party system, not this system, and you import that data in, you will not need to create patient panels or profiles. All of the information that you're supposed to submit to the state is within that individual record. If you are using this as your direct entry system, you have no other third-party system, you would use this and you would want to have that patient information in there so that you're easily able to associate multiple records for that patient over time. Also link those patient records, registry records, to associated EMS records. So if you're using this as your direct entry tool, you'll want to have patient profiles here, but it is not necessary if you're uploading it through the import and ingest pages. If you are not utilizing the state registry as your facility registry, you will have access to this and you will be able to access that EMS record search. And so you can go to that EMS record search page, load that up, and download individual run sheets here. If you click on that save floppy disk icon there next to this plus button where my mouse is located here, that will download an XML. It's a NIMSYS XML format, but it will download it locally to your machine. Be careful that your machine is able to store PII, but you will be able to download it there, and you could, in theory, upload that into your EHR system. Can a list of the data elements that are included in this registry be sent so we have an idea what will be included? I think we can work with the state to provide that data dictionary, but as it is today, the plan is for 2025 NTDS, and that is an ACS standard plus TQIP elements. There is some discussion of adding a few EMS-centric elements, but right now it is just vanilla ACS, so you can look at the NTDS data dictionary that's available on their website in the meanwhile. If you opt to use the state registry as our center's registry, is there an option to export a file from the registry to send to TQIP? Yes, there is. That is available on the registry export page. We do not yet have a direct interface to the API that ACS is developing at the moment, but we are going to work on that. Our parent organization, ImageTrend, they also have a patient registry, and they are actively working on that. We intend to build that into this biospatial registry as well. But again, you can create your own export criteria. And one parameter that I want to point out here is that there is a optional filter here where you can say filter records by NTDB inclusion criteria. If I add that and set that to yes, only the records that meet the NTDB's inclusion criteria will be exported. That will download as, in this case, NTDS XML, which is what you want for them. And then you can then upload it to their system via their normal process. I think I've hit on the highlights of this. I know this was meant to be mainly for trauma center hospitals. You're most likely at least initially, you're unlikely to use this for your direct data entry. But I wanted to give you an overview of all of the potential options that you have at your disposal. I think primarily you'll be using your import and ingest to bring your third-party exported data into this platform, and then perhaps using our analytics page to review all of that historical data together. Over time, we're going to be adding more features, for example, computing performance measures and bringing in TQIP measures and other ideas that you may have, and then also creating benchmarks of the state and perhaps regional performance so that you compare your hospital's performance against those benchmarks. So lots more to come. The trauma section has lots of great ideas and ways that we're going to build this out together over time, and we look forward to your collaboration and cooperation in the program. I've tried to hit on questions at the end, but because I feel like I've gone through most of what we needed to get to at a first blush, I think it's time to open it up to questions. So feel free to type your questions in the chat or come off mute and just ask away. Please don't be shy. And then I'll say that this is recorded, which usually makes me shy about saying anything on a recording. But we will make this recording available to others if you want to share with them, or if you wanted to go back and say, how do we import data again? It's earlier in the video.
Will there be any tutorials?
This serves as your first tutorial. We will be doing another training video in the future, and we plan to publish a training documentation that describes each of these pages and the steps that you might use to perform the function of that individual dashboard.
Thank you.
You're great. Thank you for your question. I have one in the chat. Do we have an idea when submission to the state will resume? I think Jean had to leave. Shayla, do you want to answer that one via the chat or come off mute?
Sure, no problem. Hello, everyone. As far as when we will begin this process, we're going to try to make sure everyone has taken the training and everyone is comfortable. So I would say maybe at the latest, the beginning of March. Probably trying to test it out and see what's going on and working with you guys and working with Biospatial and Josh just to make sure everybody understands the process and we have a good understanding and clear communication on how things will go. But I'll say probably at the beginning of March, we'll probably get the ball rolling and get to see some progression.
Yeah, thank you, Shayla. And I think that also, to tag on to that, addresses the next question of when will the real site be live if we want to use the state registry as our center's registry. The real site will be going live at the time frame that Shayla just shared, at which point you can submit real data and you could potentially use this site as your center's registry. So when we do go live as a production site, all of those things are then true. Ahead of that, ideally next week, we will begin provisioning user accounts on our development site, the one that I've been demonstrating now. And you'll be able to log in with the appropriate roles. We've already got your organization set up such that, for example, if you're part of Holmes Regional, you will have the ability to upload data for Holmes Regional only and create records for that facility only. But you'll be able to use that development site to test it out, make sure the forms are working for you. If you find any issues or have any suggestions, this is your playground to understand that ahead of the time when we go live with the production site. Question in the chat, if we pick this as our registry for our center registry, is there any customization available, like if we wanted to add fields? Currently, no. Any customization has to be done by the state. But if you made a suggestion to the state to say, hey, I would like to add field A, B, and C so that I can track this program or whatever the case may be, the state could then opt to add those to the state data dictionary, either as required or optional fields such that everyone would have them. Now, if you need customization further than that, then you can reach out to us and we can work on setting up a separate site just for you that you can customize to your heart's delight. It would still hopefully then be compliant with the state's data dictionary, and you would be able to export your data as if it was a third-party system from the state. Any other questions? We will be building out new features as we go. One of the things that we want to do in the nearer term, definitely this year, is add a process improvement module. So that you have more robust tracking of issues, that you can move it through the stages of your review. I forgot to show you this, but let's go back into a record here. I don't need to create a record. I want to open one. There is some rudimentary capability. As I mentioned, we did have the ability to add comments. You also have the ability to add attachments to here. So if you wanted to add pictures, images, documents, and so forth, you can click on individual documents and add them into your review process here. But we will have an explicit process improvement module coming out later this year. Also on the roadmap is to build out more analytics capability on our registry analytics page. So keep on a lookout for those things. We will send out release notes. We also put release notes on our landing page. So you'll see more of those as we make revisions to the registry. But it is certainly not static. There'll be lots to come, and we do hope that you'll give us some feedback. A question about what types of files will be accepted. Currently, we accept NTDS or ITDX, the International Trauma Data Exchange format. That is the format that the Trauma Vendor Alliance agreed upon a few years back. ESO was part of that, and then they bought everybody else that was in the TVA. And so it's essentially a de facto ESO standard now. Well, I think officially it is an ESO standard now, but we do support ITDX and NTDS at the moment. If you do have questions about my system can only export file type X, then let us know and we'll try to work with you to help with that. Question about what is the extent of historical data that could be migrated into the new system. Currently, there's no limitations on that, and we're working with the state of Florida to import all of the historical data that they have in this system. I've seen files back to at least 2018, but I think it goes farther than that. Our team has already begun loading that data on our production site, so when you log in, you should be able to see your hospital's data for everything the state has. If you see something that's missing, either prior to what we have or since then, you can use that import process to bring in any of the data that you might have in your local system. Got about 5 minutes left in our scheduled time. Anything else? All right, well, we'll go ahead and close. Again, this will be recorded and shared. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through our help desk or through the state trauma section. We will be provisioning accounts very soon, and then you'll be able to get in the system and really explore, and I'm sure you'll generate a lot of questions at that point. Please do reach out. We want to make this a collaborative, cooperative experience to benefit all of you. So thank you for your time today. Happy Valentine's Day, and I hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you too.
Thank you.